it just a couple more minutes and let folks log on. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. We want to let everyone know, first of all, that everything, we're going to record this. Everything will be recorded and broadcast. So just to let you all know that we will be doing that. Good evening, everybody. I'm Warren Miller with Fountain Works, part of the team that's been supporting you all. And we're glad that you're able to make time on your busy schedule to be a part of this meeting tonight. I want to quickly just go through a couple of things to get us oriented. One thing, if you're able to turn on your video camera, that's great. If you're able to change your name, sometimes when you log in, it logs in as something that we might not know your name. So you can always change your name by going to the upper right corner of your video box. There's 3 dots and you can rename yourself. So go ahead and if you could put your name and if you want to go ahead and put your subcommittee that you're a part of, that's great too. You can go ahead and keep yourself on mute if you've got some background noise. If you need anything in terms of technical support, go ahead and just send a message to myself or Julie, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of. I want to go ahead and share the screen now and put our agenda up on the screen. This is what we're going to be working through this evening. We want to make sure we hear from every subcommittee, have a conversation about guidance and structure for the recommendations that you're putting together, share with you the survey results, and just learn a little bit more about how the communications team with the City of Wilmington can support the task force in terms of meeting objectives. So we have a pretty packed agenda that you can see here in front of you. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to co-chair Ron Sparks. Natalie English is not able to be with us tonight. We'll hear from the subcommittees next. We'll discuss the structure. David Ingram will present the survey results, and then we'll give you a chance to reflect, talk about that. We're going to do some breakout discussions on the survey. We'll then talk about communication support, and then we'll have some closing announcements. Do also want to let everyone know that we will stay after this meeting wraps up at 7:30, so that if you have questions, we can make sure that we'll be here and the city staff will be here to answer your questions, or just to give you a chance to network. You know, we really, we wish we were able to be here in person and give you a chance to have that kind of networking. So we are going to stay as long as you'd like to give you a chance to network with each other. So with that, that's what we're going to be doing. And what I'd like to do now is turn it over to committee co-chair Ron Sparks for some remarks. Ron?
Well, thank you all for all the hard work that you do. Someone raised the question that, but they didn't hear from me in that much. We all had the background. The question raised, why did I get involved with this task force? Simply the mayor called and, hey, help out. I'm this is in my world, I'm a professional engineer, I'm a physicist, and I've been involved with this topic forever. And just a chance to try to give back. At this point, I'm going to ask for the subcommittees to give their reports. And I'll ask Julie to guide us through that process.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to find my dots on here. So we'll have the different subcommittees report out to hear a little bit about what's going on. We don't have specific questions, but I know everyone's been hard at work and doing a lot of work. So we'll start with the Transportation and Fleet Operations Subcommittee. Let us know a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yes, I'm sorry for the pause. I'm working between screens to try and get my information up. Kat would normally be reporting. She's under the weather, so she's asked me to fill in, and I'm doing that while I struggle here.
Do you want me to give you
Go ahead, Julie.
Do you want me to give you a minute?
Right. Nope, I've got it.
All right.
Yeah, and I won't share my screen, but I'll just read from the notes. And again, sorry for the delay. We are still focused on our top recommendations, which we've broken them down into 5, where the first 1 and 2 are electric vehicle and the associated charging stations. So we are still drilling down, looking for more information on that, and looking to also pair the charging stations with photovoltaics, and look to see the best way that we can implement that at perhaps the lowest cost. That's a challenge because this is all expensive. But we're looking at the best way to do that, still looking for more information to develop our plan on basically replacing the aging vehicle fleet, train staff on new vehicles and systems, and then also look at the possibility for not just the city-owned charging stations, but perhaps public as well, and maybe private charging stations. Again, looking at a lot of different options there. Those were the first 2 out of the 5. The next one is fleet resizing, not in any special order, actually. We are starting to look at that now and talking with a person in the city responsible for the fleet usage, getting some data on that, looking at the costs for fuel and maintenance, ages of vehicles as well, looking to maybe see if there's opportunities there where vehicles are not being utilized as much as they could be, possibly reducing the number of vehicles in the fleet, and see how that can help in various ways. Of course, less vehicles is less cost, less maintenance, etc. But then if vehicles can be shared, carpooling, etc., what opportunities do we have there? Also then looking at reduced miles traveled for city vehicles, which is a number of areas there. looking to promote more work from home, as we all know now, is more possible and maybe easier than we thought it was a year ago. Reducing unnecessary miles of city vehicles used in a given year. Then also we've looked at municipal, public, and private electric vehicle charging networks. Perhaps Share the Ride North Carolina and other programs that also could reduce traffic at the same time. Looking at alternative work schedules outside the normal 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and avoiding peak traffic hours as well, all coming under reduced miles traveled being the fourth item. And then telematics, looking at gathering information on that, and it's a system that's used now, and there's data, and it looks like that has a lot of good advantages already employed, and we're looking a little further to see if there's some more opportunity there to use telematics to achieve our goals here. We have a few other things, but they're down outside of our major 5 that we're looking at. And I don't think I actually need to go into those because that would take up more time. I think that's about it now for the transportation group.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yep, you're welcome.
Well, it popped up on policy and legislation. So how about policy and legislation next?
Okay, this is Matt, and Kenny might end up sharing her screen a little bit, but if not, then that's okay.
Yeah,
I tried, Matt. I can't with Julie sharing, but that's okay.
well, I can. I know you wanted to, so let me stop sharing so you guys can.
I mean, either way is fine. Right now we've got 9 recommendations, and they're split between municipal. We've got 1 of those, 5 city level actions and 3 state level actions that the city can help pursue. One of the, I think what's going to be one of our major ones is one of our recommendations for the city is to establish a city commission for clean energy. Because with all of the things that we're working towards in all of our subcommittees, even though we're doing all of this work, obviously there's going to be a lot more to do down the road. So we're creating a whole bunch of information stuff to go off of. And then I think that's going to be great to make sure it actually keeps moving forward and just doesn't sit on the shelf. But we're also going to look into encouraging New Hanover County to join in, trying to seek partnerships with local or regional organizations. And those are kind of the broader reach ones. And then more specific, there are some different partnerships with Duke, whether we evaluate the green source advantage with Duke Energy to see if that's economically feasible. Sorry, I was getting a call. There's also, let's see, I want to get back to where I was. Joining the Soul Smart program to get free technical assistance to help with solar permitting. And also develop a partnership with Duke Energy, the county, Coastal Community Action, different nonprofits, and to help with low-income home weatherization and energy efficiency upgrades. This is one that we talked with the other subcommittee. Beth has been helping communicate between that. So that's something we kind of came about together. And on the state level, we've talked about the C-PACE in previous ones. We still think that's going to be a really good program to kind of go after. And Duke also has a pay-as-you-save program on billed tariffs to help implement solar on people's and companies' homes and try and splitting the risk. And Lindsay Lake forwarded us earlier, the city of Durham has a petition that's going on right now to Duke Energy that the mayor was pushing to restructure their franchise agreement between the city and Duke Energy and how that is set up and that contract works. And we didn't know if how Wilmington is set up with that, if they've got the same type of agreement and when that is due to expire and would it renegotiate. But it would be interesting to see what Durham is able to do and work out a similar program or plan. And I think that is all of it pretty quickly.
Great, thank you. I know we're not giving you much time to share, but we want to make sure we hear a little bit from everybody. So let's jump to, let's say, clean energy technology.
Good evening, everybody. This is Ruth Smith reporting for our subcommittee. Our last meeting, we spent quite a bit of time drilling down on some of the issues that we've been looking at and really have focused predominantly on energy efficiency measures that the city can undertake. We believe that programs like Duke Energy's Green Source Advantage program and others that will be developed are very easy or attainable way for us to adopt more clean energy in our mix. We would like to work with the policy subcommittee a little bit more on that and encouraging additional programs at the state level that will allow Duke Energy to supply, continue to supply clean energy to our community. The other point that we spent some time on was really drilling down on some different technologies that are available. The city is not going to be likely to be in the business of generating electricity other than potentially on some solar rooftop type technologies. But we do believe that we can recommend, again, to the policy committee, subcommittee, different technologies that perhaps the city advocates for on the state level or nationally. And I'm going to yield to Richard Smith, the other R. Smith, as I like to call him, to give you a little bit more idea of what we're going to do with that list of technologies and how we're going to research them. Richard, are you there to take?
Yeah, hey everyone. So kind of like Ruth said, those are the different things we've been looking at. And going forward, what we'll be trying to do is we're going to look at the different types of renewable energy technologies and then break them into groups where what we consider to be worth pursuing and what we consider to be not at the stage of development yet, where it would be worth the city taking time out of its day and its busy schedule to try and endorse or support and develop. Then we're also going to kind of in parallel look at the energy efficiency recommendations. And so that way we can provide recommendations to the city that look at both energy efficiency opportunities that have kind of like a sub 10-year payback period where you can, something that they can action on immediately and in the short term. And then also some recommendations on those renewable energy technologies to help them in the long term, kind of moving forward, what they can look at and what options are available to them kind of going forward. So I think that's all that I had for everybody, unless there's anything, Ruth, you wanted me to clarify on or add to.
No, I think that covers everything. We'll be available to answer questions later on.
Great, thank you. And we will jump to social equity and community-wide adoption.
Hi, this is Amy McLean. I'm going to go through what we've done so far. We're at about 90% draft on 9 social equity opportunities related to basically 2 broad categories: mitigation of public health impacts from fossil fuel pollution and climate change, and opportunities associated with the transition to clean energy, like growing clean energy jobs in disadvantaged communities, decreasing the energy cost burden on low-income people, and improving mobility. For each of these 9 opportunities, we've identified specific steps the city can take to achieve the desired outcomes. I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm just going to list these 9 opportunities fairly quickly. Number 1 is to support and encourage the participation of minority-owned business enterprises in all aspects of the city's clean energy plan. That would be both in construction of any new clean energy infrastructure, as well as procurement of equipment and vehicles. Number 2, we identify steps the city can take to reduce the energy cost burden on the poorest city residents through weatherization and energy efficiency improvements. Opportunity 3 is to grow a local clean energy workforce by targeting low-income and minority youth and people transitioning out of incarceration. There are some terrific opportunities to partner with existing nonprofits and workforce training programs in our area. Opportunity 4 is to reduce the air pollution burden on Wilmington residents from existing industry, as well as from stationary and non-stationary sources of fossil fuel pollution. And although the city doesn't issue air quality permits, we think there's an important role for the city to play in advocacy for cleaner air. And that would including screening new industries for disproportionate air pollution impacts on low-income and minority communities, as well as on workers. Number 5 is to mitigate legacy pollution impacts of fossil fuel use in the community. And this relates to remediation of leaking underground and above ground fuel storage tanks. And those would involve funding from state, and there's some policy things that could be changed at the state level to make some more money available for that work. Opportunity 6 is to enhance access to low carbon and no carbon transportation and mobility options for low income communities. These are simple infrastructure projects, fairly simple: sidewalk connectivity, bike ped corridors, bike share programs, bike lending libraries, bike repair clinics, things like that. Number 7 is to adopt heat mitigation measures. This can happen both in the code, the city code, as well as the city doing projects on its own property. It's becoming more and more clear that urban heat effects from climate change are becoming a serious public health issue, and we think there's quite a number of things that a city can do itself to mitigate some of those effects. Opportunity 8 is to encourage community-supported agriculture and composting. And number 9 is neighborhood solar farms and rooftop solar. So our next steps are to finalize these, get these to a final draft stage in coordination with the city, and start to develop the companion draft outreach plan. And one of the things some of the other members of the committee asked me specifically to close with is that we would ask the other committees to consider, as they develop their proposals, these 3 things: how all people and communities can benefit from Wilmington's initiative for clean energy and sustainability, how communities most impacted by environmental and economic, those communities that are most impacted by environmental and economic injustice are engaged in setting clean energy priorities, designing strategies, and tracking progress over the life of the plan. And finally, that Black, Indigenous, and people of color, immigrants and refugees, people with low incomes, and disabled persons all have opportunities to be part of and leaders in the clean energy and sustainability initiative. And we also want to make ourselves available individually or as a group to join in Zoom discussions with any of the other subcommittees if that would be helpful in trying to incorporate some of these things we're talking about in their recommendations.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes if anyone has questions of the other subcommittees and you want to ask for clarification on anything.
Amy, this is Beth Hansen.
Yes.
Could you send those 3 items you just mentioned out to the subcommittee?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would say, Amy, if we, if you want to, if we didn't quite capture it properly on here, if you want to send it to us, we can certainly send it out to everyone as well.
I will, and if it would be helpful, I can send our 90% draft with the more details about the 9 opportunities we're looking at. That may give folks in the other subcommittees some things that they can help us with to enhance those opportunities.
Great.
Amy, I had one question as far as, say, the lead, a lead commitment to make funds available, for instance, through low interest loans or whatever. Would that fit into your umbrella of social equity? Because, you know, a lot of the homes that are sorely lacking in energy saving components are minority owned.
Yes.
In terms of HVAC and insulation and windows. And
I don't know if the rigorous requirements of LEED certification are necessary in order to have successful weatherization programs or to provide, help people obtain more energy efficient HVAC or appliances, but that's certainly something we'd be happy to talk about. I'd like to get more details from you.
I bring up LEED because it already has I think, a very well-defined template for how to raise efficiency.
Okay.
And there's, you know, the top of the hill is platinum, and then there's a silver, and then below that is a bronze.
I think
So,
since we have over 1,600 single-family homes in the city of Wilmington that are at 30% or less of the poverty level and are spending nearly 20% of their income on energy, the goal would be to find a process to get weatherization improvements, even if they're not 100% of optimum, to get weatherization improvements in as many of these residences as we can.
Yeah.
In an affordable method as possible.
Have you spoken with Duke Energy at all? Because I know they do have a weatherization program.
We have not yet.
Okay. I would recommend speaking with them because I know they do have a program that they run for community weatherization.
Yeah, and I don't know that Wilmington or even this area has a weatherization nonprofit right now working on that. I think the one that's working in Wilmington is actually based in New Bern. So that's one of the things where we need some additional information on is who are the existing partners, if any, locally, nonprofits or others that are engaged in home weatherization, in addition to whatever Duke might be doing.
I had a quick question for the Clean Energy Technology Group. Is part of the focus looking at city-owned building energy usage?
Yes, sir. That's our lead, is energy efficiency opportunities that are available within city buildings and operational facilities.
Okay, great. I'd be curious to see what you come up with that.
Hey, Paul, my plan is to reach out to David at the end of this meeting and kind of request some more specifics as far as what the different buildings, their usage statistics, and also what kind of measures they've already taken implementing. I know David did give us a presentation at our subcommittee meeting a couple weeks ago, kind of just detailing, you know, general LED retrofits and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely planning on diving in after this meeting a little bit deeper so we can start to develop some more concrete suggestions as far as what they can do, kind of low-hanging fruit-wise.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions anyone has for any of the committees or other requests to partner? You all have been pretty good at reaching out to each other to partner.
One of the things you were discussing earlier about LEED you may not be aware that the current building code has a energy section that has to be complied with under for new construction, and Department of Energy has programs called ResCheck, where you can put the elements of your building into this program and it will echo out how efficient your building is. Uh, Going to full lead under a retrofit environment can be expensive, but it's always good to look at that option. Complying with the current building code alone will improve the energy efficiency of all the buildings. Just not throwing lead out, just be aware that the current building code has really gotten into that. It's become kind of a political battle concerning the quote unquote lead versus simply complying with the code. And political, not in terms of Democrat, Republican, but political in terms of American Institute of Architects versus professional engineers versus the AIB versus there's several design groups out here that are involved in building and designing homes, and they all don't agree with the LEED protocol. But the building code itself covers a lot of the core elements, and LEED is a way to go higher than that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Julie, I'll just throw in a couple comments just in regard to some of the topics were brought up from the subcommittees. I don't know if you could pull up your one slide again with the your bubbles. I guess, let's see which one first. In regard to policy and legislation around CPACE, there's been a new North Carolina working group that's been pulled together here within the last couple months that I'm sitting on. We had a first kickoff meeting probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think the next one's coming up here pretty soon. So just be aware that kind of at the state level, it's a group of other representative cities that are working on that initiative. And fleet operations, just finishing up some 2000 FY20 usage, which I'll be able to share with that subcommittee here probably within the next week. I'm just going over it with the fleet manager to make sure that he concurs with the usage numbers. What else was there? Trying to go through some of the notes again. Yeah, I think that's good for now. Yeah, there's if there's some other ideas come back into my mind, I'll be sure and share. But there was amazing ideas from all the committee. You guys are doing amazing work. This is a lot of good ideas that just have my head spinning with additional opportunities. So thanks very much.
That's great. Yeah, I kept seeing his eyes light up as some of you were suggesting things. So it's great. So Ron, we're ready to transition to formatting.
Very good. We're a little ahead of schedule, which is good. We have survey data now.
Oh, we're on formatting and structure first.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have jumped ahead. Sorry about that. Now we've got several deliverables that we're going to have to deliver at this final product. And we're going to take a look at some things that have done by some of you committees that are already put together and take a look at that. I'm going to switch over to Julie, if you can pull that up for us.
Yes, sir. Do you want to talk, Ron, or do you want me to jump in?
I'll let you go right ahead.
All right, thanks. Several of the subcommittees have said, we have to do a report. What do you want the report to look like? we, Maddie and our team spent a lot of time looking at different city reports that Tom Moten had shared with you all. It's in your Dropbox folder at the beginning of our time together. A couple of the subcommittees have already started sharing their drafts, and we frankly think what you all are coming up with is as good, if not better, than what we're seeing from the other cities. So we will share around these samples. This one is from the Social Equity and Public Outreach Committee. And you heard them talking about their different opportunities. And so this is one way you could structure your committee's recommendations. They've got an opportunity, they describe the issue, and then they're talking about some things that they'd like to recommend the city should do. And then they've even gone so far as categorizing them. So, you know, she talked about 9 different opportunities, and they're following the same format, sometimes having data in there, and talking about what the city should do. So this is a format that when the co-chairs and the staff looked at it, we thought this is really logical and easy to follow, and is something you can use in all of your committees if that makes sense. I'm going to shift and share one other outline. And I just gotta be able to see it on my screen. I'm sharing the wrong one, sorry.
Hey, could you send, or you said this is on Box? I'm just curious so we can all use the same formatting for the Word file.
Yes, we will send it so that you all have it. What I wanted to say next was that, so this is a different subcommittee, and they've got a different format right now of what they're working on, and sort of an outline of what they're going to do. They've got definitions, measures, talking about what the different technologies are, and then also some technologies they don't want to endorse, and have some long-term recommendations. So we will share both of these with everyone so that you have it, but the co-chairs in particular didn't want to force you into a box of it must look exactly alike, because your different subcommittees are doing different things. So that's why we wanted to show both of these. The other thing that we talked about is there's going to be some need for the city staff and the co-chairs to weave it all together. And so some of the features of plans from other cities that we want to include are things like having clear definitions, so we're all on the same page. When we use a certain word, we all know what it means. We also wanted to have some way to categorize across your subcommittees what is sort of having a strategy filter, a way to think about how to implement things, what's easier, maybe low-hanging fruit, what's longer term to do, what will have the biggest impact on saving energy, saving costs for the city, and things like that. So we haven't exactly defined how we're going to apply that sort of umbrella filter to all of your work, but wanted to say there will be this sort of outer structure or umbrella structure to what you're doing as well. So I know I just kind of flashed these up on the screen and didn't go into a lot of detail, but just based on what you saw, do you have questions about what would work or not work for you, or Ron or city staff, if you have anything to add to the kind of report structure we're talking about?
This is an outline of how the report could look, and so everybody can get about the kind of Sure, the output is going to be put in. If you have a novel idea or a better idea, let us know. And we'll take a look at that as well.
Any other questions, comments, feedback?
How about maybe a suggestion? Let us look it over. We've got some of the people that are not in the meeting now for different reasons. Maybe give us a week or two and ask for a deadline for us to give you feedback on the two different choices with comments.
Sure, and
or third
yeah.
choice if you have one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Ron and Natalie in particular didn't want to force you into a box and say it has to, all of your reports have to look exactly alike, but we wanted to give you a sense of what are some of the useful elements. And so Paul, your feedback is great. And if you guys have a better idea for your subcommittee, share it with us. And unless you're doing something wacky, we'll probably say that looks great too.
No, I think it would be good if we fit a similar format or slight variations of it. It'd be easier for you to put everything together in the end.
True.
Yeah, I think if you get a style and word going, it will help us all along, so we don't each have to come up with a new style. The first one looked pretty good, but also if the city of Wilmington already has some styles and word, that would help us.
Amy and then Ed.
Yeah, I've got this is more of a question for the city. Is, we're looking at a 20-year plan, and it's a challenge to know how specific to get about specific organizations to partner with, specific existing programs that exist now but might not in the next administration or the next state legislature. And so is there any thought been given to looking at, say, near, medium, and long-term planning for the specific priorities to structure it in that way? Or is that more complicated than we're able to get in this limited time?
David?
I can put in some 2 cents. I think that's definitely a great approach, whether it's short, medium, long-term kind of framework or easy, or possibly something easy, moderate, hard lifts to do per se. Whether it's something low-hanging fruit that here at the city we could really kind of tackle and get on right away, as opposed to perhaps something that's perhaps state legislature focused, or a little bit longer term framework. I think kind of putting things into buckets in that way could perhaps be a good way to look at a lot of these issues, frame it for us to pursue.
Tom, you had a comment in the chat. Do you want to elaborate on your comment? Nope. So
right,
just.
I think Ed, you had a question?
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. Lindsay Lake went on the UNCW website and found a sustainability action plan dated at the top at 2019. And this is a format that has been developed by universities across the country to guide their sustainability plans, and it has the advantage of being 6 pages, and it's set up in a grid of format, and it allows for different goals for different aspects of what's going on at the university. It next presents a performance measure, and then it has something aspirational. So for instance, under the aspect of overall performance, achieve AASHE stars gold score by 2024 and platinum by 2028. And then it has a short-term goal. Then it has priority strategies, and it has the overall performance divided into two priority strategies. One is coordination and governance, and the next is measure and report performance. And I've taken a long time, but just to tell you that I worked with this for 2 days now, and I compared it against the accomplishments that have been reported by university offices, and found that they have done an astounding amount of work in a very short time working towards this plan, which apparently was started in 2016. So I commend this to the organizers to get it out for people's consideration. And I'm just going to give you the acronym. This is apparently something generated by STARS, S-T-A-R-S. And they're part of a university consortium that has developed this sustainability action plan. My background is in economic development. I developed something like this myself for a small town one time. So, and I wish it had this format to start with.
Great, thank you. And I see Kenny shared a link to that, so we can include the link in what we share. And I'll just mention earlier that Lindsay has shared a link for that Durham petition, so we can also share that link.
Julie?
Yes.
Just one quick add-on to answer Amy's question earlier in terms of context of your recommendations or proposals. The city likes to test things or do pilots. Might be a better way to frame your recommendation to do a pilot test on a building or in a certain area of our fleet before we fully invest, and then even consider a period of evaluation after that pilot so that we can redirect as needed. Just a thought.
Thanks, Dave.
Very helpful, thanks.
Right, any other questions or comments, feedback on forms? We'll get you information.
Amy, did I understand correctly that there is some sentiment that a solar farm is, in terms of having capital involved and so forth and so on, is perhaps beyond our reach?
I wouldn't say so. In this environment, it'll be beyond our reach. We're making recommendations for a long time, so I'm not trying to find money to come up with.
Yeah,
where things cost at different levels. But I think I brought up at one of these meetings that there may be a question of zoning that we have to deal with solar arrays. If you're going to have home that's fully operating solar, and this basically a house is too big to be simple roof units, we may go to a ground unit, or if I'm going to power my home and my car off that grid, it may require a different look than we're used to seeing in terms of how we see solar arrays laid. And there may be a zoning issue that needs to be dealt with. You don't want neighbors going to war because sunlight from the neighbor's solar farm is cooking plants on their house. But no, I wouldn't rule it out. I would keep it in your conversation.
Yeah. Well, Ron, you heard the person who's affiliated with Duke talk about, the location of the solar farm, requirements, the amount of solar amount of area that would be required to produce a megawatt. I think the conclusion, and I might be wrong or forgotten, but we have a usage of maybe 9 to 10 megawatts in the city of Wilmington, which would require, just according to the rule of thumb, 5 to 7 acres of usable space to plant panels on. But then there was the issue of introducing it into the grid, and it became apparent that that wasn't the end of it. You needed and I'm unclear on this, a step up transformer or a step down to get the grid to accept it. And the big expense came, a lot of expense came from the transformer station. But there's also, with this particular item, there's the opportunity to lease it from Duke and, basically reduce the capital cost of the city down to, a rental fee.
Ruth, I know your committee, you mentioned something about generating power. Do you have anything to add there?
I would just say our subcommittee is very sensitive to a word that we keep using, which is viability, and what is viable at this point in time for the city to do and to investigate. And while it certainly would be in the city's wheelhouse to advocate for programs that allow for that kind of a development, I think in the short term, we don't necessarily see that as viable, but that is something we will continue to look at as a possibility. I think something like that certainly would require some sort of a public-private partnership, probably in the shorter term. But it's nothing that we would not rule anything out. We're going to go through and look at the viability of the different technologies that are available.
It's a big bite to take. There's no question about it. But, we're looking, at different time periods for everything.
That's right.
A year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And ultimately, we want to be the best we can, which might take 20 years or 30.
And I think our reporting that each of the subcommittees does needs to be looking at a short-term and a long-term response to the questions.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. And Andrea has pointed out that the schools are looking into solar leasing. Ron, we are ready to talk about surveying.
Yes, I jumped the gun slightly there. Turn to Dave. The survey reports are in. I've taken a look at it. I was smiling earlier before the meeting started. Based on the surveys, the people expect us to solve a lot of problems that which are a part of our primary mission. But then, David, you could present the data on their behalf. Serve that we connect with and part of our mission to take care of some of the stuff we asked for. Dave? There it is.
Yeah. So David?
Yeah, great. And I'll just get you to advance the slides for me if you don't mind. So yeah, we were certainly, you can go to the next slide. We're certainly very pleased with the response that we received. So that was 621 responses via the online version that we received. Also received actually quite a few back through the mail. So some of those copies that were distributed to all of you, and you distributed to through different means, actually ended up getting back to me. So excellent response. Yeah, it was excellent communication department. Certainly helped sharing that on our both through all of our social media platforms. Go to next slide. And just I thought I'd just include the calendar and just kind of show the flow of submissions that we had. Certainly when it first went out early on, we had a big bump of submissions, and I think as they kind of continue to flash it up through social medias, that we kind of had a good flow of submissions throughout the open period. Next slide. Yeah, I thought I would just include some of the comments that people provided at the end of the survey, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail towards the end of the slide deck here. But I think, gosh, the raw data that we received, we probably had 4 or 5 pages of just additional comments that people provided, which was wonderful to see people willing to put that time in to really share their thoughts about how the city should approach this clean energy goal, as well as yeah, just the different areas that they'd really like us to focus on. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we don't have to go into a whole lot of details on all of the slides, but I just wanted to quickly go through and show the response levels to each of the 11 or 12 questions. So certainly we had a large number of respondents that lived right here within the city, but we also had quite a few from the surrounding area, which I think if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see the spread on. Sorry for the, it's kind of hard to see on the slides here, but I think I sent it to everyone, so you certainly dig in and take a little bit bigger dive into this and see the numbers. But bigger response, of course, within the city limits, quite a few out kind of in the coastal area, but you know, you can see the spread from all around the area, and certainly good to see not only here in our community, but people are thinking about clean energy around the region. Next slide. Just our demographics. Pretty even spread across most of the age groups. Even had a nice bump with a very young age group there, with representing 2% of the responses. But yeah, I think I need to dive a little bit deeper into some of these and investigate some more of the details. But I was pleased to see the pretty even spread across all age groups. And just in regard to, you know, kind of explaining the initial city greenhouse gas reduction goals of 58%. And we're pursuing this as a means to, as far as the clean energy goal, to transition the government away from fossil fuels. And just trying to get a general feeling of, do you agree with that kind of effort, or, you know, are we wasting our time? And obviously, we had a huge response that people strongly agree in the area. So I think it will be good information for us to share with the mayor and city council, showing that it's widely supported around the community. Next slide. You can go to the next slide, please. Ah, okay. Or did I skip one? There we go. They were similar. So, yeah, just a couple questions. Just trying to get a feeling of people's feelings around climate change around the world. Again, these next couple slides, we all had strong agreement that people are concerned about climate change, and not only do they want to make an impact locally, they want to make an impact globally as well. So next slide. So, again, it's showing that strong response, strong support for initiatives around addressing climate change. So next slide. And before I go too much further into all of these, we've got about 3 of the questions in here that we asked respondents to rank. I just want to give a quick shout out to Emma, who really helped dig through all of this data and get it into a format that we can display here. It was quite the chore to go through all of the raw data and compile it and get it into a slide-friendly presentation. So just a quick acknowledgement of her assistance. But here, just we want people to rank what they thought was the most important renewable technology for us to consider. It's in from kind of the bottom going up, addressing climate and environmental impacts. Had the biggest response at 37%. Implementing clean and renewable energy at 25%, and public health, which is I think a really interesting aspect of, I think particularly for the social equity group when we're looking at reducing greenhouse gases, which you know we've it's been very much part of the news here lately, how much folks in our disadvantaged and lower income neighborhoods are more affected by things like asthma and those kind of issues. So I thought that was a very interesting part of the survey to kind of hone in on. So in this slides, I know it's a bit confusing, but I kind of wanted to just kind of show the different, you know, we asked people to rank what was their first, second, and third choice. And I just kind of wanted to show the various response percentage levels for each category as far as which one was ranked number 1. As you can see, addressing climate change at 37%, but in number 2 percentage went to clean renewable energy. But then again, that kind of shared benefits for all community members was the top top percentage as far as the ranking of is strictly going first, second, third choice. So it's just kind of interesting digging down into the data a little bit deeper. And then again, this is that same questions, but I just wanted to kind of share some of the other responses people provided to some of these ranked questions. They certainly did diverge away from clean energy a bit, but I think it just gives kind of a good snapshot as far as what are some of the other important environmental issues people are wanting us to at least be aware of and address as possible with this clean energy effort that we're doing. Again, as we realize that nuclear energy is going to be a large part of our resource mix for the foreseeable future, I just wanted to include a question in there in regard to do people consider nuclear power to be clean energy? And obviously 61% do. So it was wonderful to see. I think there's certainly some opportunities out there for us to talk to Duke and see if there's either a way for us to increase nuclear power mix or just see what their plans are in regard to what that resource mix is. I know they're currently working on their integrated resource plan, so that's something we probably need to pay attention to, and if we can get copies and provide information in regard to that that Duke Energy is planning, that would be some useful information as well. Question 9, just trying to judge if we do begin to see some savings from some of these efforts that we're making, particularly as we perhaps address building energy use, if we realize some savings, how should we reinvest those? Do we want to put it right back into renewable energy efficiency efforts, or should those be dispersed amongst other programs? So we were trying to get a feel for that. Obviously, a lot of the votes were for sharing any energy saving monies around different programs within the city. So I think that provides some good information as well. Again, just showing a variety of the other responses to question 9. Won't dive in there too deep. I think if you breeze through there, you'll see a lot of common things. Certainly, water quality was a big issue that kept popping up. Social equity was a big area that kept popping up, as well as a variety of kind of clean energy ideas. So worthwhile to, I can also share the raw data, which has even more of these responses in it. And I think it's worthwhile to at least go take a look at it and just have an idea of some of the things that were coming to people's minds. Next slide. Yeah, just area as far as ranking, again, which type of clean energy should we prioritize in pursuing? And solar certainly won out in that vote getting, but interesting that nuclear was number 2. And again, just additional comments in regard to question 10. Again, just good to take a look through this as well as the raw data, which I'll share tomorrow. Some good comments, some that I'm not even familiar with yet. I need to look up basalt nuclear and see what that's all about, or maybe somebody already in the group knows and can share some information. Yeah, and I guess another area that kept popping up was bike lanes, greenways, alternative transportation, as well as whatever we can do to address getting more trees, having a bit more restriction on tree cutting, both to help sequester carbon as well as to improve the heat island effect within the city. Question 11, again, another one that took a lot of work on the data to get it compiled into the slide here. But just taking a look at ranking which areas we should prioritize when we're looking at policies and funding opportunities. So minimizing environmental effects, again, was the top vote getter. Improving that air quality, again, was area of comments that kept popping up, which I think is very interesting. Increasing access for residents to install renewable energy on homes. So again, touching on kind of that, not only city operations, but kind of that social equity component as well. And then the third top vote getter was achieving greenhouse gas reductions by 58%. One thing I'll say about our goal there, we also got a lot of comments, and you can go to the next slide. We also got a lot of comments in regard to our current goal for greenhouse gas reduction of it not being aggressive enough. So I think that'll be some interesting information to share back to the mayor and city council, that was a lot of support for being more aggressive in our goal setting. So you can go to the next slide. Again, I think the next 3 slides were just a variety of comments that I posted. Again, there were many more. I'd have to probably have done 10 slides to get them all on there, but I just kind of wanted to give a snapshot of some of the comments that people provided. And there were a lot of really good comments, so happy to answer any questions or discussion that you guys want to have
Any questions? One thing about this is a snapshot of, I forgot what the population was, 650 odd folks. Thoughts about the questionnaire. It's good to hear what they're saying. I saw a few comments about the 58% not being enough. That's actually a part of our goal here is to tell City Council what is a reasonable rate of trying to achieve the goal. Are we going to go for 100%? Are we going to go, is 58 enough? Those kind of questions is what the mayor wants us to be able to answer when we come in with our final report. So we're going to have a lot of data in here that's going to be great to have as backup. But when we get to the city council presentation, we're going to have to be able to answer the question that they put before us. You know, and this is a good start. And I was kind of embarrassed that hydrogen didn't come as high as I thought it was, because I've always promoted hydrogen, but the public apparently doesn't know how efficient it can be, especially coupled with nuclear. For those who are excited about nuclear, there's a process where you can generate hydrogen straight out of the nuclear reaction, and there's no greenhouse product at all. Water is the byproduct. But anyhow, I digress. And is any other questions, comments out there?
Yeah, I'll
supposed to have some breakout sections.
Yeah, I think Ron, we're gonna forego the breakouts, but we did have a couple of comments and questions that have come in. David Andy asked, did you get any feedback on the timeline? Did anyone comment that this may not be aggressive enough? So we'll start with that.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We did.
Yes. Several comments like that.
Correct. Yeah. Indeed, quite a few comments in regard to that we can do more and we can do it quicker.
David, another question just from the chat. Can you say more about how the city of Wilmington is looking at nuclear energy?
Other than, you know, it being a part of Duke's energy resource mix, I don't know if we're looking at it any part of that. You know, there are a few comments in there in regard to mini nuclear and that those kind of technologies, which you know, I need to obviously do my research, but I don't know if the city is going to be building any mini nuclear reactor, but we're certainly interested in you know, Duke's plans in regard to their integrated resource plan and what role nuclear is going to play in that.
If I can just add to that, please remember that the world headquarters for GE's nuclear business is here in Wilmington. A lot of the folks who work for GE are you know, live here and probably responded. But advanced nuclear is one of the issues that we'll be looking at on our energy subcommittee. It is certainly you know, a base load source of energy that anybody will be looking at going forward. Most people will be looking going forward, or communities, I should say.
And David, can you just, another question, just will the survey results be shared with the general public? How are they going to be shared with the public? And will this presentation be posted?
I think we'll probably share the results on the Clean Energy webpage. You know, perhaps we'll also share it out through our communications department via social media, but I'll certainly speak with others within the city in regard to the best way to share those results.
Let me open it up for other questions that you might have for David. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, this is Ed Abelard. Which of our subcommittees are going to fasten on deciding how the goal ought to be revised to make it a more congruent with the belief of many people that the world is on fire? my committee wasn't aware, I don't think, that we were supposed to be doing that. Maybe that's the policy committee that's supposed to be doing that. But for right now, I'd like to just get some feelings of the whole committee about how we should go about resetting that goal.
I think that's going to
Hey, Ron, your audio is breaking up. Is there another option you have for audio? Go ahead. Not really. Sorry.
Any better?
Yeah, that one sounded a little better.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Go ahead, Ron.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yeah. I may have to get another tablet to use. I've switched mics, but it hasn't improved. I'm still hearing broken conversations.
Ron, you're coming across. Keep speaking as you were.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Very, very good. I was saying earlier that answer the question, which subcommittee is going to make that determination to not go to us now, because that's all of us part of the policy. We have it, so now committees that are part we need to have more conclusion.
Yeah, Ron, it looks like it went out again. David, did you want to jump into this question that Ed had for the committee?
Yeah, I think I agree with Anna. I think as we build all of these areas that we're focused on, I think we'll come to a consensus as a group in regard to what that clean energy goal should be. I think it'll, and certainly we'll have a discussion, I'm sure, within our city staff. But I think we're definitely relying on a lot of input from all of the different groups, and to come up with a rational path forward.
Got time for a couple more questions about the survey results, or just reflections about it. Anybody want to?
There are some questions in the chat, just so that you know, but I would also just add to what Ron was saying, and David, just that I think that seeing and having this understanding of where our community is at with the understanding of clean energy, I think that the adjustment can go both ways. And I think that when we have a lot of information and, our subcommittee is social equity and community adoption. And I think there's a segment in there of community engagement. So utilizing the tools that we have, like the social media accounts and things like that, if there is a way that we can strengthen public support of a particular energy like nuclear or something that we know is going to be a big part of the plan, I think that there can be a some sort of educational outreach campaign to get that percentage higher. I think that a lot of times these are technologies, they're pretty new and recent, and so I think that sometimes it just needs a little bit of context and storytelling and updating to kind of help get people on board. So wanted to add that in.
Thanks, Sandina. I'll go ahead and Owen asked the long-range transportation plan, and in the long-range transportation plan and port activity and roads were the main concern, asking does that create a conflict with the cost and the direction of increased walkability and bike pathways. So I think that's not a specific question directed at David or Ron, but just sort of a kind of a question to the group to consider, I think. And then Paul also noted that it would be useful for his subcommittee or for all the subcommittees to condense the survey data relative to their individual focuses. So give you a chance to work through it some more.
Yeah, my point there was that if somebody could condense that down for us, that would be very helpful. The mayor and city council, county commissioners perhaps might want to see the broad data. But for us, if it was distilled down to just the points specific to our cause, that would be great.
This is PJ. I had one question and then one comment. One question is the amount of respondents from the city of Wilmington was less than 0.5% by my math. What is that? Is that standard for what the city sees with surveys?
You know, I'm not sure what. I have to go back and perhaps look into what some of the other surveys have pulled in. I think for the open period that we had for the survey, it was, you know, a significant response. Certainly feedback from our communications folks was they were impressed with the response level. I know like for the WMPO plan that just came out, I think they had a survey which I think response rate was in the thousands, but I know theirs was open for significantly longer than ours was. So yeah, surveys are tough. It's like there's a lot of them that get pushed out to the public, and it's really hard to judge how big of a response you're get. We often have a fear of, at least the communications folks, of saturating our public with surveys. So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I was just trying to get comparison. I didn't know if 0.5% was good or bad. And then regarding question 7, regarding additional data, when we looked at the different percentages, I'd be interested to see that breakout versus people who live in the city versus those who don't live in the city. And I heard through one of our conversations about some alignment with New Hanover County versus just the city. A lot of the respondents seem to be in the New Hanover County region, very few that were outside of the region. So I think that was a good aggregate number. Gave us a really good view within the county, at least.
Agreed.
I had one quick comment here. This is Luke Foreman from, I work at the WMPO, and I wanted to sort of put in a little input here real quick. So you're right, the survey we had for our plan was open for 4 months. So it was a significantly longer period, and thus the more responses. And then on that long range transportation plan, a lot of the roadway projects, I think that was, yes, Owen had that question. A lot of the long range transportation projects, I believe all but 2 of the roadway projects do include bike ped infrastructure, whether it be sidewalks or other continuations of multi-use past that sort of implementation. So that Star News article was slightly misleading.
Luke, thanks for chiming in on that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Ron to move us into our next segment of the agenda.
Ron, may I ask a question before we move?
Ask your question.
To Dave Mays. Dave, you know, this is not necessarily a clean energy question, but it's a cleanup after energy question. I know you had enormous experience in stormwater management, and I've taken your tour of the structures that you've built on behalf of the city, you know, around the city, and you know, full of weirs and planning and this, that, and the other. Do you feel like, as far as reducing carbon footprint, both from the air and from waterborne content, the trees and shrubs and this same type of wetlands creation is effective and ought to be pursued pretty hard?
Well, I think there's a whole effort that the city has kind of staked its claim on about the urban canopy, tree canopy. Trees have been shown to be effective as a stormwater control measure. And that's just one of their many benefits. Dave mentioned the heat island effect earlier. Carbon sequestration is certainly another positive thing for the tree canopy. And in fact, I don't recall the exact time frame, but recently the city went down a path with a study that was done with a group that came to Wilmington that was interested in developing a more robust impact related to trees and the urban canopy in Wilmington. I'd be happy to look that up and provide it to David so he can get it to the group if you like.
Well, your wetlands control and wetlands creation, I was very impressed by that. Is that effective to pull, you know, carbon out of the tons of road dust that eventually go into the water?
I would say it's more effective at they're more effective devices at controlling the sediment before it gets there, rather than the soluble impacts that it may have.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Getting down to the 0 hour. Julie?
We wanted to have Tom, I know we cut almost all your time off, but talk about the communications team and how they can help support us. So Tom,
yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Julie.
No, go for it.
Jared Patterson, our communications director, joined the organization about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And Jared and also Jennifer Dandrin, who works in the communications office, sat in last month's task force meeting to become familiar with the work of the task force. And I asked the two of them to, particularly Jared, to speak to you today about how the communications office can support your work. I noticed that David Ingram mentioned that communications could help with the survey, and I think they really could help with the survey and getting the important information out to the public. So I believe Jared is on this call, and I will turn over a few minutes to Jared. Jared?
Yeah, I am here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. I apologize in advance if you hear 3 youngsters running around in the room behind me, such as COVID life these days. We did put our heads together in communications and came up with several ways that we thought we'd be able to help support this work. 3 of them in particular I wanted to mention to you. The first one would be assisting you in the ongoing work of the committee. You saw the initial survey that we were able to assist with in sending out through our digital platforms and facilitating those respondents. I know that there may be future questions, potentially future surveys where you're looking for additional citizen feedback that we'd be able to help out there. in the future to assist you in answering questions, gauging opinion, maybe honing your recommendations. As well as awareness. We're covering these meetings. Smile, you're on TV right now. And we're also promoting this through our digital platforms, through media releases, and we want to continue to work to draw awareness to the task force as your work continues. The second major area where we thought we might be able to assist you is in sharing the work of this committee with the public. First, I would say this is engagement. One of the beautiful things of a task force like this is that we have people from many different facets of the community that come together and work collaboratively towards solutions to common problems. And so we in communications want to partner with you in helping to take this story back into your respective networks. And then second, we want to be partners in helping to tell this story. We have worked to cultivate a pretty significant digital media presence for the city. I could envision many things coming from the work of this committee. Video projects, if you look at some of the Rise Together conversation videos that we recently put together and released for the city, is one example of that. Explainer videos, Facebook Live events, graphics, infographics, timelines of progress and future goals. I kind of view the task force as picking up a ball that had started to get advanced down the field to some extent. And so we're part of an ongoing story, and we can tell that from work that's been done to future goals and work that we want to continue to track achievement towards outcomes in the future. And then, of course, a pretty significant educational, informational component to this, as well as an advocacy extension. So I would just ask you to view us as partners in helping to tell that story as your work continues, and then certainly as it culminates and begins to become adopted as recommendations that become policy that the city works towards in the future. And finally, I would say something we certainly want to work with you on is helping to weave the work of this committee into the broader message of the city. Clean energy, I think, connects in many different ways to the life of the city. City communications, right now, we're seeking to become a nexus and a hub of information sharing within the city. And because we are kind of a central clearinghouse that touches the city from one corner to the other, we can help to make critical points of connection. You know, just in what I've heard in probably just the last 10, 20 minutes, trees, equity, development, bike lanes, operations, intergovernmental community partnerships, and on and on. So we want to be partners for you in helping to draw those points of connection to continue to drive this conversation as we reach the implementation phase, which of course is going to be ongoing. So that's just kind of a quick overview of some of the thoughts that we had after listening into your last meeting in ways that we would look forward to being able to partner with you in the weeks and months and years to come.
Thank you so much, Jared. That's awesome, and I think really valuable. And I don't know if you were watching the chat while you were talking, but already you've been invited to the next Social Equity Committee meeting because part of their charge is community outreach. So they already know that they want to partner with you. So we are 3 minutes over our time. I'm going to wrap us up, but as we said at the beginning, we're going to stick around. We'll ask the city staff to stick around. And Jared, if you wouldn't mind staying for a minute or two in case people have questions for you. If your kids in the background, we'll let you stay a minute or two longer. Our next full task force meeting is September 22nd. You all have your subcommittee meetings coming up in about 2 weeks, and you'll be getting information from David, from me, from Maddie. Warren, we're funneling most of it through David, but we'll follow up with you after this meeting. So Ron, I'd say we could officially adjourn, but let people that want to stay on, stay on.
Yes, we're going to officially slap the gavel on this. I would linger, but I have to take care of my, I have an invalid mother-in-law I got to go take care of. So as I say so often, talk amongst yourselves, report back, and we'll see what we can do. I saw a crawler about, I can't remember who asked the question about the city's implicit bias training. I have to get a staffer from the city to address that directly. I know when I worked for the city for 15 years, and there were several attempts at trying to do that kind of training, which has nothing to do with our energy task force. I'm just responding because there was a question raised. So if a city staffer who was familiar with that could talk to her, whoever that was that responded, I love it. Anyhow, y'all carry on. I'm out.
All right. So thank you, everyone. If anyone wants to sign off, feel free. But anyone that wants to stay on and ask some questions or just network a little, please do.
Hey, Ron, are you still there?
Ron's gone.
Signed off.
Okay.
Tom, do you know the answer to the implicit bias question? Does the city have training?
Yes, I was typing up a message. It's yes and no. However, there was action taken by the city council earlier this month. I think it was August 18th, a resolution adopting that city council began, and it's the Rise Together initiative that Jared referenced, but at its core, it's equity, diversity, and inclusion, and examining city practices, policies, programs that help advance those three elements, also that may create barriers. And so city council has adopted that unanimously, and that was this month on the 18th. The police department has extensive implicit bias training. Linda Thomas, who used to provide that training, we've offered it in other forms. But I know that I'm unaware of something that is broadly across the entire organization. However, Human Resources facilitated a training workshop for engineering. So we do provide it. It's not what I've come to observe has been a mandatory minimum element as part of your skill set in working with the city. Dave Mays has been with the city a long time, and he could probably speak to it for over his time period there.
Thanks for pointing out how long I've been with the city, Tom.
You come with great experience and wisdom and knowledge, institutional knowledge.
Yeah, you're correct. We haven't had what I would call citywide training on implicit bias, although there is discussion around that topic right now. So,
Dave, you were about 15 years old when I first met you when you got to the city, so you can't be that old now.
Looks are deceiving, Bill.
But so since we're asking Jared's grace to stay a little late before we let him go and the rest of us just chat, does anyone have specific questions for Jared?
Jared, I had a question. The survey that went out at the start, what we were all talking about today, it was really cool to have it printed and available in other mediums, but it was only available in English. Is that something that your team would work on in order to get the most materials to the most people in Wilmington? Having things available in other languages?
Yeah, I think that in the past we've used partnerships with UNC Wilmington to have things translated if and as necessary. And so if we think that there is an outlet where alternative formats and languages would be helpful in facilitating additional responses that are being omitted because of the language, then certainly we can work on making that happen.
Okay, I noticed a lot of the, I follow the city of Wilmington on Instagram, and I also follow New Hanover County. I've noticed a lot of especially the health, just, updates and information that go out have been, 2 slides, one in English, one in Spanish, which I thought was really helpful. So that was just something I was thinking about. Thanks.
Amy?
You're on mute, Amy.
You're muted there.
Okay. I was wondering if about mapping data that might be available to us. It might be helpful, for example, for us to be able to see city-owned right-of-way superimposed over census block tracks, things like that, so we can start to make some connections about where resources might be available, city resources might be available to achieve some of the things we're looking to, and like connectivity of sidewalks and bike paths and things like that. That's just a random example. But if we need some mapping from the city, who would we request that from? Some specific layers, some specific data?
Yeah, you could talk with us about it, and we would probably work with GIS to see what we have available.
Great. Can you also possibly integrate some GIS layers from other sources like Division of Air Quality, some of their environmental layers they've got?
I'd have to see what's available, what our capabilities are in that regard. I mean, you are kind of hitting on to an existing conversation that we're having with GIS in bringing some greater integration and seizing upon some of the capabilities that they have that we are not currently utilizing.
Okay.
So it kind of hits on to an ongoing conversation that is recently started, but for immediate purposes, we can certainly see what capabilities we have at our disposal.
Now, do you all also have any kind of arrangement with Cape Fear Collective, which seems to be doing a lot of data analysis? I'm not totally sure on what their role is, but it can be challenging to find good neighborhood level demographic data, health outcome data, and I think all that exists somewhere, but it's in a bunch of different places.
I would probably defer to Tom in my vast 7.5 weeks of time at the city. I don't know that I have full perspective on all of our many partnerships. Tom can probably shed some light on that.
I'm not presently aware of a collaboration with that organization. However, the GIS capability at the city is pretty extensive.
Okay.
We certainly can provide what I would call the layers that were mentioned earlier, whether or not if the air quality data is out there, I feel fairly confident our staff can provide it. Relative to Cape Fear Collective, I think that's something we'll just follow up on, David, if we don't have that relationship, Dave Ingram, to see if there's interest in maybe working with us to do some data analytics, maybe helping us. But I'm not aware of an existing relationship to that degree in GIS. We just consolidated all of the GIS staff under one umbrella to sort of leverage the resources. So prior to that, it hadn't existed. Dave Mays, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm not aware of an arrangement with that group either. I would just offer to Amy that if you have specific areas of interest, send us a list and we'll put together what we have. I've got 3 GIS staff that work in my building, and they have very extensive routes to reach out and grab resources, and we can use them as their time allows, for sure.
I think potentially it can serve 2 purposes. One is to target efforts, help the city target efforts in implementing some of the recommendations we're going to make. And it can also be used as a communications and outreach tool to help people in the public visualize what some of the issues are, so they don't glaze over at all the wordiness of some of what we're producing.
And Amy, I would say that in addition to that, even if some of these capabilities maybe don't fully exist now, one of the great things of the work of a task force like this is we can envision where we want to go and where we want to cultivate future abilities. So even if we can't do it now, it could certainly be something that we could aspire to in the future.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Jared before we let him go, or anything else you want to? So I'll ask Jared specifically so we can let him go first.
I've got a quick with Amy. Jerry, I hate to beat the leads thing. It's not the Bible, by the way, but it is comprehensive as far as how to manipulate and include important building components. But it's not just the building, it's also the location of the building and things like electric supply for electric cars. You know, you get points for all this stuff. Proximity to basic services in the neighborhood, on and on and on, and you get points. Well, what good do the points do you? Well, they show you're a good citizen for one thing. The city already requires some of these things. They require sidewalks, but they're not really able to mandate sidewalks in all situations. They do with new construction. But I think that document, it's pretty easy to read. It pulls a lot of these things together as far as building, best management practices for a municipality or a building or a site or the whole shooting match. That's it.
Hey, Bill, if I could jump in real quick, just
Sure.
in regard to that. What's something that's really interesting that the USGBC has collaborated on, and they're the ones responsible, everyone, just for the LEED rating system, is a LEED for Cities rating. And somebody was mentioning earlier the university and their star rating. That's kind of who the USGBC collaborated with to develop this LEED for Cities rating. And it really does kind of look at ways that you can track progress towards social, economic, and environmental performance areas kind of across city operations, things from like policies and social equity areas. So I can share that information with the group, but I think that could be a really interesting area, perhaps policy area we could look at pursuing.
It kind of pulls a lot of our thoughts together into, one focal point rather than this and that and the other and try this, try that.
Yeah.
It's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, the LEED for Cities looks at a much broader perspective as opposed to looking at individual buildings. So that could be a great area for us to focus on. I think
I wasn't aware there was a separate leads for municipalities.
So I'm gonna say, Jared, thank you. Go enjoy your kids in the evening.
Absolutely, it's great to be with you. It's appropriate, I guess, that that they're running around back there for the clean energy, because they're not very clean, but they have a lot of energy. So, I'm gonna go remedy both of those problems.
And they've been quiet, but thank you so much for coming.
Take care, and thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jared.
So anyone else just want to chit chat, ask any questions? Ashley, I think you asked back to the implicit bias. Tom, do you know if there's a particular vendor the city's working with?
Well, our former person who provided it in the house has been recently hired to become the diversity equity officer for the county, and we'll have to reach out to a vendor. I fully expect, as part of the council's initiative, that one element will be, in order to foster understanding, it has to begin with awareness and knowledge of the subject matter, and not just assume that people come fully armed and equipped with a full understanding and knowledge of how diversity, equity, and inclusion impact the organization, as well as how we view service. One phrase that I think will become part of our operating norm over time will be viewing our service delivery through an equity lens. But in order to, equity without diversity and inclusion still leaves you somewhat at a deficit. that equity lens, we're finding increasingly cities and counties are utilizing it as they begin to assess services and also the disparities that exist within their communities. So I hope that somewhat answers your question. And I can just simply say from my previous employment, I am familiar with firms that work in North Carolina. I've worked with them to create a diversity equity program.
Thank you. I am curious, I guess this is my last question. Who's heading up that effort in the city of Wilmington?
I have that opportunity. We like opportunities at the city of Wilmington, so that's going to be one of my new endeavors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Julie, I thought I saw a comment pop up in the chat box, which I don't have access to, in regard to, did someone not get a copy of the survey?
Oh, that was me.
Okay, I'll be sure to send it your way.
Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Andrea, maybe as a follow-up to your question or inquiry about equity, if you're interested, we'll be happy to send you the city council resolution. So at least your subcommittee will have that information. And then you may want to dovetail some aspect and relate it to that particular resolution. And I'm certainly available to discuss how that is going to evolve. In the past, when I've done this work, it's really a multi-year process, but it really starts with some understanding, some training of staff, leadership, and then also putting the tools in place to help the team do their work and incorporate those elements as we envision how, in this case, clean energy can be beneficial or a barrier to certain segments of our community if there's not some concerted effort to help those individuals overcome it. And primarily cost has been a consideration for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Ashley had the question, but we're both on the same subcommittee. So if you want to send it over to us, we'd be happy to take a look at it. And I think that being that this is a multi-year clean energy plan, I think that having a multi-year approach for that makes sense to align both of those as well. So that would be great.
Okay, I'll just make sure everyone gets it. How about that? Julie, if I send it to you, would that be okay?
Yeah, that
and
would.
You can post it for everyone?
Yeah, or send it to David.
David, okay, David, I'll get it to you, okay?
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is for Ashley and Andrea. I think there ought to be a mandate to keep energy companies, like Duke, used to be CP&L, from putting these enormous substations in economically challenged neighborhoods. I think that, I gotta feel that it was done mostly in the past, I hope, because the inhabitants that live there did not have the traction politically to say, no, we don't want that here. And it's happening here. It's happening in Brunswick County, where in all their wisdom, the county commission said that, oh, we need to put a dump somewhere. And it was, right adjacent to a primarily minority neighborhood. And I don't think it ought to be left up to the inhabitants to say, no, this is not a good idea. I think that the city, in our case, needs to say, no, it is not an idea that's going to fly.
Bill, this is Tom. Can I comment on that for a second?
Sure.
So I understand what you're describing to be from my prior work experiences to be environmental justice. And so certainly from the federal funding programs that I've worked with in some states, you have to do an analysis of what we will call social or environmental justice. And so while those things have happened in the past, it should be a barrier. But I fully expect, at least in our community, to have a dialogue about the placement of infrastructure that could be considered less desirable for certain neighborhoods. So that certainly will be part of the paradigm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm trying to be careful on how I respond to you because I don't want to get too far ahead of the elected officials in this process. It's still evolving.
Sure.
Hopefully you can understand that.
I can, but it has been in the past at least a common practice to target these neighborhoods. And in the case of Brunswick County and the dump that was proposed, they got up and said, no, we're not going to have it. And I'm hoping they're going to prevail. I think they will.
Yes, that has been a practice, unfortunately, in government.
And that's a social equity issue if I ever heard one.
Indeed.
I agree, Bill. And I would just add that those three sort of tenets that Amy included at the end of sort of our subcommittee presentation, we'll be sure to send them out, but we were hoping to have buy-in from other subcommittees as well to sort of have it be as our leading mission statement that whatever we are, policies, technologies, companies, whatever we're evaluating in the lens of our recommendations. The second bullet point in particular is communities most impacted by environmental and economic injustice are engaged in setting clean energy priorities, designing strategies, and being leaders as part of that initiative. So I think that if we include that as part of our mission statement, hopefully that is something we can kind of keep coming back to, of looking through it in that lens of, it shouldn't just be our most vulnerable communities having to stand up and say no. It should be built in from the start that they don't have to be put in that position. So thanks for bringing that up. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, that's good.
Good. I have to jump, but have a great night, y'all. It was really good to hear you all and see you all today.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
It's good to see you too, Rick. How are you?
Oh, thanks, David. I'm doing pretty good. Hanging in there, so to speak.
It's great to hear. Yeah, I know you'll have some great input for the group.
I don't know. I haven't been able to participate a whole lot, other than providing some information on the program we're working on with advanced youth outreach and quality of life blueprint and coal industry. So we're trying to build we're trying to get funding to build a program for training for at-risk youth.
Yeah, wow, that's great.
And then also for folks transitioning from incarceration. That's further down. We're going to do we're going to focus on the at-risk youth first, and then modify it.
Yeah, well, that sounds like it could tie in nicely with the work that this group is doing. So certainly that kind of creating green jobs and opportunities, and again, that's the whole social equity component. So glad you're working with them.
Thanks. I'm glad I am too. It's I probably wouldn't be able to contribute much to anything else because I'm having to, I'm doing construction work on kind of freelance to get by right now. But we're doing all the we're trying to build a program. I'm doing it as a volunteer at first, but hopefully we'll get some funding and be able to move it forward.
Yeah, keep me in the loop. It sounds great.
Yep, I will.
Hey, and Julie, before you depart, my wonderful sound man, Greg here, had some question in regard to, or I don't know if we can just exchange info, but just how you guys do the whole breakout rooms stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think they'll be doing that here at the convention center with some large groups, and like some information on that.
Sure. Yeah, feel free to give them my email or phone number. I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay. Word. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I think I'm going to sign off and go have dinner now.
Have a good evening, Julie.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
See you guys.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.
Good
Hey,
night.
David,
Yes.
Ingram and Dave Mace. Hey, before you sign off, one of the groups that I'm working with as a board member, we have the individuals in attendance sign on electronically on an electronic sheet. They just type in their name, so we have a good list. I don't know if we're getting that, capturing everyone, but that may be a tool for us to use to account who's in attendance. And it's really the individuals just, you have a sign-in sheet, they go onto it and just type in their names on it. I think we're using a Google Docs maybe, or some platform that we just had it up available for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Just a thought.
Yeah, we certainly integrate that moving forward.
Well, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the generosity of your time and your energy. I'm really excited about the direction that this task force is headed.
Yeah, there's some amazing ideas bubbling to the surface already, I can see. So exciting and energized every time we finish one of these meetings. So I'm looking forward to it as well, Tom.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.